Greetings, magical mages and spiritual sages. Welcome to the Age of the Mage podcast, and we're on episode 70. Today, I would like to talk a little bit about secrecy. Secrecy and hidden things. Of course, the word occult simply means hidden. Mystery schools. And I would like to distinguish those ideas from the ideas of transparency and openness and, this sharing. This is an actual issue within traditional magic. Apprentices, as they came into their practice with magic, often were told and learned to keep silence about their work. They were told not to share what they were doing. The idea of what they were learning, the idea that was sacred and meant to be kept behind closed doors, prevailed in mystery schools, and it still does to this day. And some of this energy that goes along with the darkness, or being behind closed doors, being out of sight, is partly what our world is facing right now, and many of us have resentment about, because we are coming to learn that many things have been going on that we certainly would not approve of had we known, behind these closed doors of those that are in positions of power. Some would call the elite. There's many names, the cabal, these types of entities that are on earth and hold so many of the keys of power. And we have come to really associate secrecy with negative connotations, and rightly so in many cases, because conspiracies happen when two or more people get together, make a plan, and actually want to do something, most often harmful to another group or another person. And they make these plans in private, and it can become even ritualistic in how members, so to speak, of their alliances can join their clubs or take part in their nefarious affairs. And so we have visions of the cloak and dagger, meeting in the wee hours of the morning in the darkness in these abandoned buildings, and everything that surrounds our ideas when we hear conspiracy or plotting or criminal activity, and the dark forces. We think of these actual dark places, these physically dark, removed from view places. And it's become very popular in, I would say the last 20, 25 years. This word transparency is bandied about and, of course, overused, and becomes a weapon in political arenas, because everyone is challenging everyone else to be transparent. In other words, come out of these shadows. Tell us the truth. Away with your lies. We want to know. We want to shine some light on the darkness now. And we want you to be transparent with us. We want you to be open. We want to be able to see things as they truly are. And this is natural too. Once we know that we have been lied to, it's a betrayal, and it ruins trust. It erodes our trust. This happens in personal relationships all the time, and now we are seeing this tremendous backlash where it has occurred on large scale, in large scale arenas, with, for instance, a government lying to its people, and then that lie becomes exposed, the people become angry, and there's a revolution. Or where a corporation has produced something or has lied about something, and it turns out to be harmful, or it's something that is damaging to people, or or the landscape, and all of a sudden, we're very angry, and we demand that they reveal what they've done, and we want this, again, transparency to, and it's so we this is natural, and it's healthy, and it's good to uncover and be aware of what is truly going on in the shadows, because that makes us, each one of us, a more responsible citizen, and more, it increases our wisdom, our knowledge. It gives us a more realistic view of the reality that we live in, and though that set of knowledge, that set of facts, helps us navigate our world in hopefully better ways, and be able to put up proper precautions, and be a little more discerning, and so on and so forth. So this is healthy for us to get this knowledge, and see the world for what it is, and understand both the forces of light and dark, and build up our wisdom about such things. And so as we do, of course, we really long to dig and find out more truth. It becomes quite the quest, doesn't it? So there is legitimacy to this demand for transparency, and I can fully appreciate that. Now, on the other hand, I want to look at the flip side for just a moment. Besides things that are negative being planned away from prying eyes, uh, things that are positive can also be happening in relatively private spaces. Our loving, our intimacy is most often expressed with each other in private spaces, and it's a very healthy, wonderful, sacred experience, full of light and love and laughter, and yet we do guard it, don't we? What about our emotions? Some of us wear our hearts on our sleeves. Some of us are more open with how we feel. But even those of us that are open, and I tend to be quite an extrovert, so I tend to speak my mind, and then later can often regret it, but it happens. And I express my feelings usually just as I'm feeling them, things like that. However, even those of us that are like that, we have a second level of feelings. We have deeper, innermost thoughts and feelings that perhaps we'll never share. We have to work through them, we have to process them, just like the most introverted among us, who may have a larger collection of those feelings and may struggle to even express more surface feelings. Nevertheless, we all share. The deepest parts of ourselves are similar. We share this space as humans that we guard. We guard, and we leave it on the inside. We keep it behind closed doors. And yet it doesn't mean that those thoughts are all negative. We might process through some negative feelings, and those don't feel appropriate to share all the time. But some of our thoughts that we don't even have the words to express, or feelings, are actual joyful feelings, or just full of emotion, full of passion, full of good things, full of light. And even those can be difficult to express, and we may very well keep those under wraps too, at least until we come across someone that we feel we can share those feelings with, and that they'll be respected, and they'll be treated with respect, like they deserve. And so we're discerning about where we share our private ideas and our private thoughts, our private feelings. So there's just two examples of things that you could call hidden. We could say they are not transparent, and yet it's not a negative. It's okay to claim some of this personal sovereignty, and these personal spaces that can be protected, and that we know are just for us, or just for those included in the space to take part in. We might even have some friends that we get together with, and we share deep feelings or memories or emotions, and it's a happy time. It's over a meal. It's after we've watched a movie together. And yet is not always open to the general public. We kind of resent the idea that big tech might be listening in on even those kinds of conversations through our phones or other devices. We guard that privacy and we have an interest in our privacy. And that's another issue that's rising up on the horizon, so looming today are all the issues that have to do with privacy. So, in spite of this cry for transparency and then the abuse of the word and the manipulation of, you know, revealing little parts to pretend that I'm showing you something when really it's the tip of the iceberg and all the other stuff remains below sea level as usual. You know, aside from this desire we have to bring things into the light, we have actually a very natural respect for the shadows as well. And we just don't think of it, and we don't always realize that when we are searching for truth and light. We forget that many parts of our own lives require some shadows to be effective, and requires some boundaries and requires some darkness and stillness. So back to how this applies to magic. When of course, anything can be abused. Any principle at all can be taken to extremes, and what is magnificent in the hands of someone with light and loving intentions can become cruel and downright evil in the hands of someone with dark intentions. So it isn't the principle itself that is the problem. And that was kind of what I'm getting at by showing us that there is both a need for transparency as well as need for privacy. So when we go to magic and we go to this idea of the mystery school and being trained and being told to keep things secret, yes, in many cases that has been abused, because what it has done is it has convinced people to stay silent even when things that are out of alignment are happening, and those are never reported, and they continue to be locked behind these closed doors and guarded and protected, and that's unfortunate, isn't it? In fact, it's in many cases it's become um, more than unfortunate. It's become criminal and just horrendous atrocities being carried out in those kinds of environments. However, there are schools of light, mystery schools even, that know the value of secrecy, and they too need to guard and protect their spaces and their people as everyone in their groups develop and practice and increase in their skills. And so we must respect the idea that, again, it is not the principle of requiring some privacy to work that's the problem. It's the intentions behind the work and what's being fostered in that private space. So when we look at magic or religions or mystics, these maybe even things like monasteries, things that covens, all these types of cloisters, these types of environments that need to work in private in order to raise their power, in order to raise their skill levels, in order to raise their vibrations, their frequencies. In order to do these things, they do require this protected energy field. But and so I think there is value to the mystery school, to the idea that this can provide, um, it can take an individual practitioner to the next level to be able to have a small group that's trusted and experiment with and share stories with, and the hearts are open, the intentions are pure, and so there is safety, there's security, and there's respect in that environment. And yes, it could be accused of being secret, because if not everyone is invited in, it suddenly comes up against this trope about transparency. but they are entitled to have their sovereign space as well. This is also evident in the individual, the magician's personal journey, the spiritual worker's personal journey. It doesn't matter which path you are on. It is sometimes taught to in traditional magic systems more than it is taught in something like if you are getting your access to spiritual information through galactic connections or something. This idea of secrecy is not stressed as much. But what it amounts to is that you have great power within yourself. And if you spread things too thin as you are, bringing about something, trying to manifest something, you dissipate that powerful energy that is building up inside of you. So let me give you an example. Let's say that you you're not satisfied with the current car that you have, or the car is breaking down and you need to manifest a new car. And you are somewhat familiar with maybe the concepts behind the laws of attraction, or you are a practicing magician, or you have worked with angels very successfully before, whatever this line that you have established in your manifestation practices, whatever that line is, you have some confidence in it. You have some trust in that. It's worked for you. So you have decided, all right, I'm going to apply some magical principles, spiritual principles, to manifesting this new card that I need. Now, we all know that many of us are surrounded by naysayers. We're surrounded by people who do not believe as we do in some of these things. And that's one level of discouragement that you could hit right off the bat. If you run in and say, hey, to your roommate or your partner, your mom, your friend, hey, I know how I'm going to get a new car. I'm gonna just sprinkle some water over this plant here and say 3 words, and it's going to work. Well, obviously I'm simplifying things, but what I'm getting at is we know that look we're going to get, don't we? We're all familiar with it, the rolling of the eyes. I mean, in some cases, it's even a longer lecture, whatever. And so that first wall of resistance, we have all become familiar enough with that we don't always do that anymore, right? We've learned, let's not run out and tell everybody what I believe I can do. Well, that's a point of secrecy. That's a point for the individual magician to keep power generating in your own field by not sending it outwards before it's time. All right, so we get other levels of that same idea. As this process is going on, perhaps the person doing it, you actually feel energy rising. Maybe this type of car that you want, you're starting to see more often. Perhaps a flyer, you receive a flyer in the mail or something from a local dealer, and lo and behold, the spotlight is on this vehicle that you want, and a sale is coming in the near future or something. In other words, signs start to appear perhaps, or your feelings are reaching higher points within you, and you're gaining more confidence. Now, again, in magic practice, the person doing this is warned to still withhold these energies inside yourself. It is still cautioned. You are still cautioned not to just start blurting this out and spreading it around, because it dissipates the building energy. You might not be met with such strong resistance as that first wall. Perhaps there is some progress towards the card coming into your field of reality, and the manifestation process is farther along. But there are more subtle ways that resistance can tear you down, or even you can, yeah, it's very hard to even describe, but sometimes when you put words to what you're doing and you share those words, even with someone very supportive, you can literally feel some of the energy that has been building up in you slipping out. If you're very sensitive, you will be aware of this. I'm sure it's happened to you. It's even happened in things that are non-magical, I'm sure. Like you'll have a strong thought or a strong idea, and you're excited about it, and it may work, and you're just sharing it around the dinner table or something. And even as you share it, you can feel energy leaving your system. So there is this kind of crucible stage, this kind of creative stage within each of us that very often benefits from privacy and from secrecy. And it is not intended to be deceptive. It is not intended to be a lie of omission, not any such thing. It is simply respecting the process of how energy grows and flows and manifests, and that encourages the practitioner to do this. It's the respect for that process, the awareness that this will be beneficial. So I think that it might be healthy for all of us to take a step back and remember that things can all be twisted. Things, ideas, concepts can become narratives according to agendas. And this principle of secrecy, this is one of those things that is definitely being, isn't it interesting that the sources that we are demanding be more transparent and reveal more about themselves and stop the lying and the deception. Isn't it interesting that their resistance to doing so is still very high, and yet they are in the process of manufacturing and implementing every single thing they can to invade our privacy, to take away something that deep down they know is extremely critical and extremely crucial. And this is not just 3D tracking that's important. Your sovereignty allows you to develop your powers. We need to remember this. This is another layer and another reason why we need to guard the concepts of privacy. And we need to stand in truth about things like honorable secrecy. We need to stop bandying about these trending words and allowing our energy to go into these waves of constructs, these etheric constructs that are being created around words that are really intended to come back and hurt us. This is the level of discernment that we need to be developing. And I felt this issue to be very important today because as we move forward, as individuals practicing magic and spirit, and as teams and small groups that might be able to meet each other and do some work together, we need to not fear any kind of accusation about our privacy and about our need for secrecy in such situations. We need to guard that. It is a part of the process, and it is a very healthy part of the process that unfortunately can be distorted according to negative and dark intentions, of course. But we can also respect what healthy boundaries can do for us. And goes much deeper than when you first look at the issue and you might think about privacy issues. It goes much deeper because we need to retain this deep sense of the right to our privacy in order to work with and bring about the powers that are rising within us. I thank you for listening to this, and I hope that it will provoke some thought and that we will be able to have interesting discussions in the future about this concept and other things. And very grateful to each and every one of you. And I face this issue even in my podcast and in speaking to you and in producing other things, because there is a fine line between offering very deep concepts that will prove to be meaningful and crucial in all of our spiritual magical work, and crossing that line over into and withholding too much, so that I'm not uh, I'm not sharing, the meat. It's just all the milk all the time, because it is a public offering, and it goes out onto platforms where anyone can receive my messages, of course. And so in the future, it is likely that I will invite those of you who are interested to become members of a smaller group, and will I will feel freer to share some even deeper concepts within those more protected boundaries. And I hope you can appreciate my reason for doing that. I thank you for your patience with my learning curves when it comes to producing videos, producing podcasts. I thank you again for your patience with background noises. I am in kind of a large one-room area with some dogs that make noises, and I'm not able to get all those gone for you. So I do apologize that sometimes you will hear those background noises, but I appreciate you for putting up with such things. I'm sending you all the best this day, and I look forward to speaking with you very soon again. But I will say goodbye for now.